Got a Honda Accord in the shop that needs a new radiator and some hoses. Let's get to work. This is what we're working on today, a 2004 Honda Accord EX with a 4-cylinder 2.4 liter engine. Because we're going to be bleeding the cooling system later, we'll go ahead and turn our key to the on position and we'll turn the heat all the way to hot. And we'll listen, make sure everything moves correctly. And when it's all done switching over, then we can turn everything off. And today we're going to be replacing the radiator and both upper and lower hoses due to leaks. Quick note on safety, do not open these cooling systems when it's hot. Let it cool down. This stuff will come out and burn you, so wait till the vehicle's cool. This vehicle sat overnight, so we're safe to go ahead and open this up. First thing we'll do is we'll start draining the coolant. I'm going to drain it into this. Be sure to dispose of used coolant properly. We'll go ahead and put it under there, try to get it in the right spot. Take our cap off, put this to the side, and let's see, can you see it? Right down here where this opening is, that's our drain for the radiator, and of course it's really tight. I might need a tool to get it. Nope, I got it. Just loosen it up till it starts draining. While that's draining, we'll go ahead and get this plastic cover off. We got a bunch of these little clips here, and then we got a couple of these style. I think there's one here and one here. So those two are like that, with the little Phillips head. The rest of them are going to be like this. For these, we can usually just use a Phillips screwdriver, and if we don't apply too much pressure, it should start popping up. But at some point it wants to just sit still. Usually we got to use another tool, screwdriver or whatnot, to get it out. Like that. And then we just pop the bottom out also. And for these, you can usually just pop the center out like that, and then the whole thing will come out. Sometimes it doesn't. You have to kind of pry it up. You can do it with a tool like this. You can grab it with something like that and pull it out. But now we just got to go around and get the rest of these out. And I recommend wearing safety glasses when you do work like this. That one shattered into a million pieces and hit me right in the face. So luckily I was wearing safety glasses. And we should be able to pull this off. It's typically clipped in with these guys down here, so you gotta overcome those. Well, that's nice. All the clips along here are broke. We'll have to address this and get that fixed. Now, of course, typically you don't have to remove that. It's just held on by clips like this. And it looks like all these have seen better days. So, we'll see if we got some clips like this that we can reattach this. For now, we'll just leave it off. That way we don't bump it and break anything. As soon as we're right here, we'll get this cover off. We got a clip here and a clip here. This appears to be an aftermarket clip. This is the correct Honda clip. So we'll try not to break them. We'll get those clips off and just pull this out. And yeah, we can leave that in place, and it should just overcome that rubber grommet right there, and we should be able to just kind of lift it straight out. There we go. Now, we'll just go ahead and pull this hose off, and for that I'm going to use these fancy little hose clamp pliers. Just do that, and then we'll try to let it go, and we should be able to just twist it off, and hopefully our bucket is down there pretty close, so we can try to hit some of it. And it doesn't seem to matter where you put that bucket, you always miss some. But we'll go ahead and we'll put this hose out of the way for now. Whoops, we don't want to lose that. Man, I already tore up one glove. Now, seeing as we're right here, if I can get you a shot, see the clamp right there? Hopefully you can see the clamp right there for our upper hose. I'm going to just go ahead and see if I can grab it from here with all this stuff in the way and get this hose up out of here. Well, I thought I hit record, but all I did was lock open this clamp, move it back, just reached in there with the tool, pulled the hose off, so there it is, it's out. And I lost another glove. Next, we'll take off this coolant reservoir. So we'll just pop that line out, and then, oh, I forgot. This is an aftermarket one. Typically, that's a 10mm bolt. I got to get the right size. And looks like this one is 7mm. And don't drop it like I just did. Then we can just pull it straight out. It's just got a little clip where it hangs over here. And we'll just dump this coolant. Now we're going to take this fan assembly off, and we got a bunch of connectors and wiring harnesses that are pinned to it that we're going to have to contend with. Typically these right here, we just take that little lever in there and we push it away. We got to push it that way, and of course I can't do it with one hand. Push it away and it should lift up. Come on, like that, and then we can just unplug it like normal. And it's going to be the same thing with this one over here. If we just kind of press it down and pull it here, and yeah, it's tough doing it one hand with the camera in your way. But we just take them off like that, and then all we have to do is press this right here, and we can disconnect the plug. And let's see, there should be, yeah, this wiring harness goes down, and it's clipped down here, so we got to get it from down there also. Alright, we got to get this one down here. Same thing, we just press it this way and pull it up off the bracket right there, and it's the same thing. I'll just reach down there and unplug it. We just got to squeeze this tab right here and disconnect the two pieces. So I'll do that one right there, and then I'll unplug this one. And this one down here, we could unplug it, but as long as we just take it off the bracket and leave it off to the side, we're good like that. And then of course, all I did was reach down and squeeze the tab and unplug this one. So this side is good to go. This side over here, a little more of a challenge. Now reaching down and disconnecting this, that's easy. But right here, this wiring harness is pinned into our fan shroud in a couple different places. Now we could just rip it out. We could just put a tool in there and rip it out, but we're going to damage that. Most likely we'll damage the clip that's holding it in. If we loosen up the shroud and pull it back a little bit, we can reach in there and disconnect these without damaging it. I think that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so we got it unplugged, and now like I said, to get to the back side of these clips, I'll just pull 1, 2, 3. I'll pull these 3 bolts right here, and that way we can pull our shroud back a little bit and get to those clips. Alright, in order to get these off, we just need a 10mm ratchet or wrench or something like that. Now with it disconnected, we can see the end of the clip right there. So all I need to do is just reach in with these needle nose pliers, squeeze it and kind of push it out, and that way we won't damage it. Because yeah, a lot of times that little tab right there, you can see there's one here and there's one on the other side. You'll bend them and break them right off if we just rip it out. And we'll just turn that clip to the side like that. See if I can get it holding the camera. I'll just reach in there like this. Come on. And pop it through. And it's snapped off anyway. Well, you do your best not to damage fasteners like this, but out here in the desert on a 20-year-old car, that's what happens. We can try on the next one. Hopefully we don't damage it. I do have some replacement ones. They're not usually as nice as these factory ones, but well, we'll have to make do. But I'll reach down there and I'll get that second one and we'll see what happens. Okay, I got that second one. It looks like I managed to salvage it. The tip is just barely sticking out, but I don't believe it's broken. Now we got one more way down there, and I'm going to use a small pair of needle nose pliers and see if we can't get that one. Okay, if we look at our wiring harness here, hopefully you can tell all the clips are undone, all three of them. Looks like two of them we salvaged. The only one that broke was this one up here, and that's not uncommon. These things definitely get brittle and break apart. So we should be all disconnected now. We should be able to lift this fan assembly out. Alright, now with the fan assembly out of the way, we can reach down here and unplug our cooling fan switch. Come on, these things can be on there fairly tight because they haven't been off in a while. There, yeah, that one was on there pretty tight. But that is our cooling fan switch. On 2003, 2004 models, they have a cooling fan switch. So it's just a switch inside there that closes when the coolant gets to about 200 degrees, and that turns the fans on. 05 and later models, they changed this out. It's in the same location, looks very similar, but it's actually a coolant temp sensor. It's ECT2. If you look at it on a scan tool, ECT1 is the regular coolant temp sensor, and then this would be ECT2, but that's only on 05 and newer ones. Now I'm going to reach down here, get this hose out of the way. So same thing, we got to grab that clamp, pull it back and get it off there, and do the same thing right here. Of course, our clamps is at the bottom over here and it's on the back side over here, so they're not going to be easy to get to. Alright, this one obviously was sitting back there like that. I just had to put some needle nose pliers in there, squeeze it and move it up into position, and then I put the hose clamp pliers on there and was able to lock it open like that and move it wherever I wanted. And the bottom one, I was able to use the hose clamp pliers the whole time. So now we just got to twist these hoses and get them off. Now I'm just going to reach down there, disconnect these two transmission lines, and these clamps, they can be a pain. Man, these things are a pain. See if the camera will stay there and cooperate. I'm just going to pull this line off. Stupid camera. The camera fell, but I'm just plugging it with my finger, and then I got a little tool I'm gonna plug it with. And that's all I did. I just held it with my thumb and then put this little plug. I'll show you one. Just one of these guys. Just got it plugged in there. And that's what they look like disconnected and plugged up. Now we'll pull the brackets off of the top of our radiator. So we got one here bolted down and one here. Need a 10mm socket or wrench. And there's one. And there's 2. And there's a little tab right there on each one. When we put it back, we just got to make sure to hook it in. Now I'll just reach down here, close this up so it doesn't drip. It's still going to drip, but we don't need it to drip out of there if we can avoid it. Now we should be able to just lift our radiator up and out, just like that. With it opened up, I'll try to clean it up a little bit before we put it back together. And these are the plugs that I used. Alright, it's cleaned up a little better than it was. While I was cleaning up, I went ahead and cleaned off the little nipple there and put our new hose on with a brand new clamp. The part number for that hose is going to be right here. I went with a Honda one. I'm not a huge fan of aftermarket hoses because a lot of times the diameter is a little bit different. And then the hose clamps don't work and it just kind of becomes a pain. Then you got to put aftermarket clamps on and so on and so forth. So whenever I can, I try to use genuine Honda hoses. And we'll just go ahead and put that hose up out of our way. The original radiator from Honda was made by Denso. So we're going to go with another Denso unit, but this one is going to be aftermarket, but made by the same company. It does come with a cap. And that should be our part number there, 2213229. Always a good idea, compare your new part with the old part. Make sure they're the same, or at least close enough that they're going to work. Comparing our original Denso with our aftermarket Denso, it's a little bit different, but it should be okay. It looks like everything is matching up. Now, we want to make sure that our transmission cooler lines are tight, which these are already tightened up, so we're good there. We want to make sure they're angled the same. This one looks pretty good. This one's off a tiny bit, but we should be okay. We got some room with that hose. Our temperature, our coolant switch, we need to move that over here, and then the rubber feet right here, we'll have to pull those off and put them down here. And while we're right here, we'll make sure this is tight. And that should be good. Now to get this cooling fan switch off, we need a 24mm socket. That's what's going to fit over it. So this is a 1/2 inch, so it's deep enough to get out of our way. So we'll just have to pop that loose. See if we can pop it loose right here without damaging anything. There we go. And that's what it looks like right there. Now that cooling fan switch needs to go right here. So we'll just pull this out. And this should be the same size. If we grab it right here, that should be the same size. It should thread right in, as long as they did everything correctly. And it does. We can see that that threads in perfectly. Now there's an O-ring right there that we need to replace. And here is the part number for that O-ring. We're going to go with the Honda one. Right there. Now, depending on whether you have an ECT or a switch like this one, they may be different sizes. So it does come with an adapter that you would put in there. And if you did, you would use that O-ring with this adapter. And then you would put your sensor in there with a new O-ring. And that O-ring is a different size as this. I don't have the part number for those right now. But if you do, I recommend replacing the O-ring for whatever you need to put back in here, whether it's a cooling fan switch like this or an ECT2. So I'm just going to pop this old O-ring off, clean everything up, and then I'm going to put the new O-ring on. Okay, I have the new O-ring installed. I just have a drop of new coolant on there just to ease installation on that O-ring. So we'll just go ahead and get that snugged up. Now, the torque specs for these are 17 foot-pounds if you have one of these, if you have a cooling fan switch. If you have an ECT, it's going to be 8.7 foot-pounds. So make sure you don't over-torque these. We're just torquing it down into a plastic fitting. Alright, 17 foot-pounds. Not very much. And like I mentioned before, we want to make sure that these two fittings are tight. In this case, we need a 22mm wrench on this Denso unit. Other manufacturers may be different, but we just want to verify that these are tight. That one's tight. And that one's tight. So we're good to go here. Now, we'll just grab our new radiator, gently drop it into place. We want to make sure we don't hit our AC condenser here and do any damage. Of course, we don't want to damage our new radiator. Now, those rubber feet that we swapped over from the old radiator to the new one, we want to make sure that they fall into place right there and over here also. So our radiator isn't flopping around. I think now's a good time. We'll go ahead and reinstall these two brackets. Of course, this one goes on this side. And we just hook it right there and then get it into place. Install our bolt. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Alright, we'll get these tightened down. Now these are only like 8.7 foot-pounds, so we don't need to kill them. Alright, now we can pull these little rubber caps off and we can get these transmission lines reinstalled. So I'm just going to pull the plugs and just put it back on really quick, and then we'll slide these clamps over. I'm not going to record it because I can't really get the camera down in here, and I'll probably say a few choice words to the designer of these clamps because I hate these clamps. But we'll get them put back down on there and get them reinstalled. Alright, ATF hoses are back, clamps are back in place. They're kind of a pain. It can help to have some pliers like this where the head kind of moves and it can grab all three sides, because you got, you know, one tang over here and then you have two on the other side. So a lot of times if you go to pinch them from the side, like with needle nose or something, you'll bend the first one. If trying to grab the second one, this first one will bend and then it just becomes a nightmare. And there's not much tolerance to get it over that barb right here. So you got to squeeze it as tight as you can to get it past the barb to get it in place. So you may want to consider just putting some worm clamps on here. Now while it's open, we'll go ahead and install our lower hose. Alright, there's our old hose. Here's our brand new hose from Honda. There's the part number. And of course, you want to make sure you install it in the correct orientation on the car. So that's how it should go back on the car like that. This should go over to the radiator. And we're going to use two new hose clamps. And the part number for that, if you can read this at all, it's going to be the second one down, that hose clip 35 or 36.5 millimeter right there. So the second part number down where my finger is, 19511 PH7003. Alright, we'll go ahead and get the hose installed. I got the clamps kind of pre-positioned close to where they need to go, that way I can just slide them over. So we'll just see if we can't pop it on. Alright, hose is in place. Now we'll just get the clamp slid over. And we just got to remember, there's our little barb right here. So the clamp needs to get on the other side of that barb and be in the flat spot right here. Alright, hose is in place, clamps are back in place. I put this clamp here where I can get to it easy, and then that clamp I put it right on the side where I can get to it easy. And as before, we just want to make sure that our clamp is past the little barb area right there. And before we forget, we'll plug our cooling fan switch in, and we'll make sure that our drain is tight. We already did, but we'll just double check. Alright, now we'll just drop our cooling fan assembly back into place. It goes into that little hole right there, and there's another hole right there. So the 2 feet just kind of lock in there. when we're dropping it in, we got to make sure that we don't damage the nipple right here. And you know, the original one had nuts back in here for the bolt to go in. This style has these guys, so obviously whatever style you're putting in, just make sure they're already in place before we put it in. What do you think? Time for a new glove? When you drop it in, you want to make sure that those feet on the bottom are locked in. So try to pull it out, see if it'll move out. Now these aftermarket ones, they don't line up as nice as the Honda ones, but they're not as expensive either. These bolts are barely long enough, but I think they'll work. Yeah, they'll be good enough, but aftermarket parts, and of course, nothing lines up perfectly. Alright, we'll get this side buttoned up. Where are you at? So this, we should be able to just slide this onto place like that. And of course, this plugs in together. Come on, can I do it one hand? Nope, of course not. Alright, snaps into place, and then this one just should slide right here, like that. Alright, we'll do the same thing with this plug, just like we did on the other side. And for this harness, of course, we have 3 clips, one down the bottom, one in the middle, and then this broken one here. This broken one here, we'll go ahead and use this in place of it. Yeah, let's see if I can't get them snapped back into place. There's the bottom one. There's the middle one, and then here's our other one. Oh, that'll work just fine. Tighten that up. Yeah, that'll work. We'll go ahead and cut this off. And there we go, all put back together. And always, always, always flush cut zip ties like that, so you don't cut your hand or arm wide open next time you reach in there. This is what I use to do that. They work really well. I think these are made in Japan, yeah. We'll go ahead, reinstall our coolant reservoir. Just drops into place. Sometimes it's kind of like a puzzle. You gotta fit it perfectly in there. These aftermarket ones, sometimes they don't want to play nice, but there we go. Just put that back. Now I fished and found the car, or found the bolt underneath the car way over there. So we'll get that reinstalled. Now this one, because it's aftermarket, it's just threading into plastic. So we definitely don't want to over tighten this one. We'll go ahead and get our clamp pre-installed on the hose. And we'll pop this hose into place. And feeling where the barb is, it's right there. I need to move this clamp over just a hair. There, that's better. We'll go ahead and reinstall this cover, and we just need to make sure that it goes over that rubber grommet right there and pops into place, and that should line up everything right here. Now we'll just grab our plastic clips and put it in. And got both clips back in there. Seems to be holding good. Now we got to get this back in place. It kind of clips right here like that, which kind of locks it in place. But these clips are also hold it, and they're all broken. So I got to see if I got other clips that'll hold that in place. Well, looking in this set, this right there, I think, oh, almost dropped it. It looks pretty close to this one. I think we'll go with this one. see how it works. Well, it's secure now, so that's good. If we peek in there, that's it right there. So you see they come up from the bottom. So you got to have real skinny hands to get in there and push it into place after you clip it in. But we're good. It won't go anywhere now. Alright, we'll get this cover back in place. Of course, on the sides it locks in here. On the front it locks in here. And then we got 4 points in this piece, which is why we kind of need that secure. And that's for these guys right here. So they have to go in. And of course we have to contend with this. So a little bit of a balancing act to get it all into place. Now, we need another one of those. It looks like this one right here will work, 6mm. I think that's the correct size. So we'll try it out. That seems to work good. And I was able to reuse all of these, but I did test it in case I needed to. And out of this same kit, these will work in place of these, so in case you need them. This kit will have all the clips you need if you break any. And here's a close-up of the kit. It's going to be part number 8179. Okay, now that everything's buttoned back up, now's a good time to double check our work. Make sure we didn't forget anything. Everything's plugged back in. Every hose is back connected and clamped in place. Every bolt is in place. Clip is in place. I think we're good to go. Alright, now we'll just fill the system back up with coolant and then we'll bleed it and get all the air out using this spill-free funnel. This kit comes with a lot of different attachments, but this is what we'll be using on our Honda here today. We'll just put it through like that, and we'll be good to go. And that will just attach to our funnel like that. Now, as far as the type of coolant, I only recommend using genuine Honda coolant like this. Now, I've relaxed my stance on aftermarket coolants as long as it is made for Hondas, like this one here, made for Honda and other Japanese manufacturers, same as this one. As long as it's blue, made for Honda, I'm okay with it. Obviously, I like this stuff the best, but in these last few years, there have been times when I cannot get Honda coolant at all, and I'm forced to use some aftermarket stuff. So I've relaxed my stance on stuff like this. You can save some money by going this route. In fact, we're going to save the owner some money today. We're going to be using this stuff. And typically, you're going to want a couple of jugs of coolant when doing a job like this. There's the first gallon. Alright, we got it topped off with coolant. The coolant level is about right there in the funnel. Now as the vehicle starts warming up, this coolant level will rise and fall. It'll bubble up like that little bubble right there, and it'll kind of splash around. That's all normal. What I do to help it move along, to get it warmed up, because we want those cooling fans to come on, and that'll tell us that our switch down there is working on this model. But I'll bring the RPMs up to about 2,000, maybe 2,500 for a little bit in order to warm it up. Once it gets fully warmed up and those fans start kicking on, then we should see air start coming out. What we want to watch out for, every once in a while there'll be a hookup and there'll be a big spot of air, usually right next to that ECT, or engine coolant temperature sensor, or thermostat. And what happens is that temperature gauge will just go all the way to hot immediately. You know, after you're warming the vehicle all up and all of a sudden bang, it goes all the way to hot. Shut it off. If you see that happen, shut it off. Let it cool down for a little bit. Let some air work its way out. and then we fire it back up and do it all over again. Obviously keeping an eye on that temperature sensor again, or the coolant gauge inside the vehicle. That happens, but it's pretty rare, but it's something you need to be aware of, and we always got to keep an eye on that temperature gauge inside the vehicle. Or if you have a scan tool, you can be looking at ECT1 on the scan tool also. But we'll let it warm up, we'll let those cooling fans on, we'll let this bubble out, and we'll get all the air out of the system. And of course, while it's warming up, we're going to be looking for leaks down below and all in here. Everywhere where we did work, we need to make sure it's not leaking. And once that idle drops down to normal like it is now, that's where I'll start bringing it up to about 2,000 or 2,500 RPMs to help it warm up. And of course, we want to keep an eye on our temperature gauge here. We don't want it to go to hot. And on a properly operating Honda, when it's fully warmed up, that temperature gauge will be just a little bit below halfway. And if you forgot to turn that heat all the way up, now's the time to do it. That way coolant will be circulating through the heater core. If we come over here and look, we can see our coolant level has risen. And of course it just stopped right now, but it was definitely bubbling up. Of course, we want to look under here, make sure we don't see any leaks. And our cooling fans just came on, so we know they're working, and we know this vehicle is warmed up now. And if we look, we can see our temperature gauge is exactly where it should be on a fully warmed up Honda. And while we're in here, we'll turn it on hot and we'll feel the air, make sure it's hot air. Oh, that's really hot. I can feel that, so that's a good sign. We got coolant going through our heater core and it's nice and hot. Now that it's warmed up, we'll let the rest of the air work its way out of the system. When we're satisfied that we got most of it, you're not going to get every single little tiny bubble of air out of there, but you'll get most of it out. When we're satisfied we got most of it out, we'll go ahead and shut it down, top off our reservoir, and we'll be all done. And on this model, both of those fans come on together. So if only one fan is coming on and not the other, then you need to troubleshoot that, because that can cause overheating. In this case, both of our fans are coming on together, so we're good to go. It looks like most of the air has worked its way through the system, so we can go ahead and shut it down. Alright, we're going to do this little trick in order to not make a mess, because if we just plug it and lift it up, it's going to spill. We do this, we squeeze the hose, and that'll raise the level just a hair, and then we plug it. Like that, and that usually prevents it from leaking all over the place. And then we're just going to dump the remainder in here until we fill up the reservoir to the max line. And that was all of it, and it's just a hair below the max line. Alright, now I'm just going to top the reservoir off to the max line. Don't ever tighten this cap either, you'll break it. And we can see that our coolant level is all the way up to the max line. Anytime we break open a cooling system on a Honda, we always want to make sure that this reservoir is topped off to the max line. Now, what do I recommend from here? Well, take this vehicle out on a couple of drive cycles, drive it, heat it up, come back, let it cool down, check the coolant level. Keep this thing topped off to the max level, because there's going to be a little bit of air left over that will work its way out. So we want to keep this reservoir topped off so our coolant level doesn't go low. Also, we did, lose a tiny bit, a minuscule amount of ATF fluid, so now is a good time to check your ATF fluid. Well, not right this second. Do a drive cycle, when this vehicle, the proper way to check it is when the vehicle is fully warmed up, the fans come on and off twice, that's fully warmed up. We drive the vehicle for 5 to 10 miles. We don't want to drive it too short. We don't want to drive it across country. We only want maybe 5 to 10 miles max. Come back, park it on a level surface, and then turn the vehicle off and wait 60 to 90 seconds. We need to check this fluid when the vehicle is turned off, and then right within 60 to 90 seconds. We pull the dipstick, we wipe it off, we reinsert it all the way down, then we pull it back out, and then we check it, and it should be between the two dots, preferably closer to the top dot. And then as long as it's there, then you're fine. We don't need to add anything else. If it's a little low and you've checked it properly, well, then you want to add a little bit, top it off. Well, that's it for this one, and as always, if the video helped you out or you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. A little bit of bonus footage. Are you guys curious how much ATF fluid you use when doing a job like this? Well, I went ahead, drained the radiator, well, the ATF fluid that was in the lines in that radiator, and right there, that's about how much came out. Of course, I did spill a tiny bit on there, and you know, I lost a tiny bit when I disconnected the lines before I could plug them, but that's about how much was remaining inside the radiator. So yeah, you're going to lose a little bit of fluid, but not a ton. And how much ATF fluid was that exactly? Well, I put it in here so we could measure it, and well, you may not be able to see it, but it's exactly 50 milliliters, 50 milliliters, which is about 1.7 ounces. So you know, when you do this job, you're probably going to lose 2, maybe 3 ounces of ATF fluid. So if you're going to add some back in to compensate for that, I only recommend using ATF DW1, genuine Honda ATF fluid. Don't use anything else. So how did I handle this vehicle? Well, I put about 2.5 ounces of ATF fluid back in there. We'll do one final check of the ATF level once I do a test drive. Just remember, if it's too low, below the minimum mark, well, you could do damage to your transmission, or it may not move when you put it into gear. If it's too high, above that top dot, well, then it may creep when it's in neutral, or it may not, you know, shift properly when you have it in drive. So just some things to be aware of. And after a test drive, we can see fluid levels right at the top dot. So this fluid level is perfect. And now's a great time to double check our work. Make sure we don't see any leaks. I'm not sure if you can see where that coolant reservoir level is, but it's right at the max line. I did top it off again. I let this thing cool down completely, and once I did, it was a little bit below halfway between the min and the max, so I topped it off again before my test drive, but we're looking pretty good. And that's it for the bonus footage. Thanks for sticking around to the end.